Welcome to #FinanceMaster, a weekly show where Anders Liu-Lindberg discusses the latest trends in finance and accounting. Kick back, relax, and enjoy this week's show.
Hey Zeeshan, how are you doing?
All good, Anders. Hello to everyone present for the webinar.
Great to hear. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and really excited to have you here today with the whole audience and everything else that's going on, and just sharing some perspectives on business partnering and just hearing your experiences from the local context. I'm sure it's going to be great. We're just gonna passing a minute or so just to let people have a chance to jump in and get on the broadcast here. Uh, but I think it's always great to get a kind of like a practitioner's view in as well, and that's why we brought you here today. So we hope that you're up for it, and you just can't wait to hear all your great stories as well.
Great, Anders, and thanks for the opportunity, right? And also, Anders, I believe we've been planning this for a while now. So I'm very excited that it finally happened today. So I'm looking forward, and I think we'll have also wonderful audience with us, and we'll get some very practical examples and best practices coming, especially from the Middle Eastern region, right? That's the focus for today. So looking
Absolutely,
forward, Anders.
absolutely. Let's aim for that. But perhaps we should try to kick things off. So my name is Anders Liu-Lindberg, partner at Business Partnering Institute. I'll be your host today and talking about harnessing the power of business partnering in finance, especially in a Middle Eastern context. And today with me, I have Zeeshan Pervez. Zeeshan, feel free to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Anders. Hello, everyone. I'm Syed Zeeshan Pervez. By profession, I'm a member of two accounting bodies, ACCA and ICAW. Over 25 years experience uh, and commercial finance, finance business partnering, and strategic business planning is at the heart of it. I've also been very fortunate to work on some of the best multinational systems out there. I shared 3-4 years experience with Anders while we were in Maersk. I've also spent time in Coca-Cola, been part of Unilever's Lafarge, and now I'm as a group CFO for Flow Group, which is one of the sister companies of Al Sulaiman Group in Saudi Arabia, and I'm based out of Jeddah. Um, I have a passion for sharing experience, especially on the finance business partnering topic, and also on commercial finance. And looking forward, Anders, to having a very productive and very interactive session with our audience today. Thank you.
100%. And if you are listening in, feel free to put in the comments where you are tuning in from. Of course, this is not necessarily exclusive for people in the Middle East. Of course, we welcome people from all parts of the world, but of course, always nice to hear a little bit from the audience. And I'm going to be sharing a few perspectives on business partnering, what it is, and how to be good at it. And then we'll hear lots of great stories from Zeeshan as well. So I'm just going to share my screen here, and then we will go into it. Yeah, we can see it here. So again, welcome everyone. We've just set the scene, done some intros. So happy to have Zeeshan here today. I'll talk about the case for business partnering. We'll talk about our formula for business partnering, 3 times I. So hold on for that, and talk a little bit about how to get started. At each end of each section, I'll check in with Zeeshan to hear his experiences and stories as well. So why are we talking about business partnering in the first place? Well, there's kind of two reasons. Some would say a negative, and others would say they're positive, and of course it kind of depends on your own context. So obviously we've all heard that the robots are coming, right? We've heard about digital transformation for years, and it's real, right? There's more and more AI coming in. Last year was kind of a year of generative AI, and you see more and more AI assistants coming in as well. And kind of maybe the negative storyline there is that AI will take over our jobs. Not necessarily true, but they will change our jobs. And that leads to kind of the second point, the people transformation. I asked people on LinkedIn, a few years ago now, but I asked them, why did you go into finance in the first place? 55% said, because I like to work with numbers. 35% said, I like to work with business. Only 10% said, I like to work with people. And what is it that we're going towards today? It's working more and more with people as business partners. Uh, and so it's a challenge. We have to transform as people. I went through that transformation myself. It took me 10 years. And now we're here today trying to make that journey a little bit shorter for you. Wouldn't that be nice? So there's digital transformation and people transformation. And it's all leading to, at least I think, more exciting roles, more exciting jobs, a bigger opportunity to make an impact. But let's just take a trip down memory lane and talk about development of finance. What is it that we have gone through? We've been scorekeepers, recording and keeping track of transactions and bookkeeping and doing some limited analysis. Maybe some years in the past, I don't know how you are today, but sure, someone needs to keep the score, but hopefully we can also do a little bit more than that. Then we've been commentators, starting to report on the numbers and add some insights to it, but still with very much a past event focused historical figures and little forward-looking perspectives and very little decision support. Now we still need to do both these things today, but hopefully that's where AI and automation comes in to take up a lot of this work here. Then we've been trusted advisors, providing advice from the sidelines with limited accountability and skin in the game. Now, I always tell the story of a consultant. I'm a consultant today, so I can make a bit of fun of myself. Consultants, they come into your company, they look around, talk to some people, do some observations, then they make a huge PowerPoint presentation or whatever PowerPoint or presentation tool you use, dump it on management's desk and say, here's all the things that are wrong with your company, and here's our list of things you think you should do differently. See you next time. And then they leave, leaving you to kind of fix it all, which is hard, right? So there's that final step of the ladder called business partner, where we're an active driver of business result, taking responsibility of the overall success of the company. So we'll be able to do all the same things as a trusted advisor will, but we stay there with you throughout, trying to implement these solutions, trying to work through these challenges, right? So it's doing all the things we had to do in the past and then some. How do we get there? Well, moving from what to now what? Moving from controlling to partnering. Moving from facts through reason, why is it the way it is, to recommendation. Now, the way to look at it is these 6 activities. Data that needs to be analyzed and reported on. That may give us the reason why we're performing the way we're doing, which should lead to insight, things we don't know but can help us make better decisions. And with skill, we can maybe influence decision makers to make the best possible decision, which we can then drive for impact, make the better decision, and execute well to get the desired result. That's, in a nutshell, the movement, the development we want to see. And Zeeshan, how have you seen this development over the years from controlling to partnering? And to the audience, are you mostly controlling or are you partnering? Let us know.
So thanks, Anders. And I think it puts the business partnering in the right perspective, right? And Anders, I also see this diagram in terms of the maturity of the organization and maturity of the finance function. So just to tell a bit about the current organization that I work with. So just to give a perspective that I'm a group CFO for Flow, and Flow is end-to-end logistics, right? With lots of complications, lots of different activities integrated with each other, and lot of different functions coming together: warehousing, transportation, last mile, coming together to deliver the customer experience. So I've seen in my experience that at a very low end of maturity cycle for any finance organization, it's more about uh, accounting, it's more about reporting. And the finance I see is also as a silo based function who are not connected with the business, and their job only comes when the commercial has done their sales, production has done their production, they come and then just they record to report, I mean, as a silo, right? um, and uh, and also, Anders, in my experience over 25 years, I've seen there's been a huge shift, because like I said, I was part of the commercial finance and I was part of the finance business partnering functions. So I've been part of that transformation, right? And so how the finance moves from that silo base to a more connected, I think it's down to Anders taking a transition from a more data democratization, where data is not limited but it is distributed. It is more about visibility of data, right? And it's also about being seen as a trusted advisor of the business, right? Because it's very easy to prepare reports, and it's very easy to just email reports to your functions, to your managers. But if you're not doing some insights in terms of what is driving that revenue and cost, and if you are not using them to predict what the functions can do differently, then I think you are still stuck in that controlling phase and you have not moved into the partnering phase. So, Anders, I mean, honestly, if you ask me, Zishan, what will be the typical organizations look like at the moment? I think, again, in my experience, Anders, it is still, I still believe 50 to 60% controlling mindset and around 40% business partnering mindset, which makes a good opportunity, Anders, and the right business case, especially in the Middle East, as per my experience, to bring this subject forward.
Thanks, Ishan, for sharing your concrete experience and examples here. And I think the stats you shared here at the end, really resonates with me. We often survey participants in the learning programs that we do, for instance, and they typically spend upwards towards 2/3 of their time on controlling and 1/3 on partnering. And when you ask them, what's kind of your current state on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is 100% controlling and 10 is 100% partnering, they're typically saying 4 for, mostly in the controlling domain, and they want to be 8. Right, so they really want to make that move and make that shift, and I think that's really great that the desire is there. And just before we continue, just want to recognize the audience here as well. We have Sahar joining from Dubai. We have Kingsley from Nigeria. Zacharias says welcome. And we have also many others joining in. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. And we have one comment here. Unfortunately, I can't really see in my own system here, but basically someone saying a bit of both. You can't do one without the other. So that's Ahmed Samir saying that, and that's true. Right? I think you also mentioned that, Shishan, right? One builds on top of the other. If you don't have controlling, it's going to be very difficult to do partnering. But it's all about breaking down those silos that you mentioned, and I've heard that silo analogy for years, and I still hear it today. So it's not easy, but it definitely can be done. So thanks for that, Shishan. Also hello to Kushi from India, Augustin from Cameroon, and Gib from Tanzania. Please just keep telling us where you're tuning in from. We really appreciate that. But I'll continue a little bit, and then we'll hear back from Shishan a little bit later. So let's talk about the first part of the equation for us, impact. So let's just, yeah. So basically, what is business partnering? Well, it's that last bit. It's insights, it's influence, and it's impact. Right. So we start with the impact bit, and how do we measure that? Let's talk a little bit about that. But first, what is business partnering? Is it a role, a mindset, an activity, or perhaps all of it? And I just gave a talk earlier today to a company based in Austria, but a global company. And I also asked them a little bit, what is it? And they kind of like, yeah, it's probably all of the above, and it is. But there's a sequence to it. First of all, it's a mindset. It's a mindset for everyone in finance and procurement, HR, IT, legal, tax, all these functions that are maybe not primarily driving the business, but are helping those that are driving the business. It's a mindset for all of us. Oftentimes, it's also an activity part of our job scope, right? So we are doing some business partnering and some other bits. And in some companies, and Zeeshan, you mentioned some of them, it's a role, right? It's a defined role in the organization. And Maersk, where we have a common past from, there is probably 500 roles that were called finance business partner in some shape or form, right? So it can definitely be all of this, but always a mindset. And then we kind of come to the formula, right? Business partnering and a formula. We like formulas, we're finance people, right? Insights times influence equal to impact. That's business partnering. And then, of course, there's a multiplier between insights and influence. So if you have no influence, you can have the greatest insights in the world, doesn't matter, there's no impact. And of course, the other way around, then you're just a nice person to have a cup of coffee with. And while that has value as well, it has less value in business, I would say. So we're all striving for impact, and impact is to improve decisions and maximize value creation. Now, value creation can be shareholder value creation. It can also be, society value creation. It can be many different things. For most companies, it's to maximize shareholder value creation. And how do we then measure it? Well, if you're a business partner and you want to know how am I successful, there are 3 KPIs to consider. The first, most important one, the primary one, if you only have to pick one, this is the one: business results. Are we reaching our objectives as a business? Are we delivering the value that we're expected to by shareholders and others, or not? If the business is not successful, finance is not successful. Period. There's no world where finance can be successful and the business is not. That is a given. Right? So that should be a primary objective almost no matter what you're doing in the company. The second one is customer satisfaction. Am I invited to the table? It's very possible that the business leaders in your company are just really, really good and can basically just drive the business without finance there. So you're just doing compliance work. Right? You got to ask them, are you happy with the support that we're giving you? Simple question. Of course, we can probably add a bit more color to it and so on. But you need to know, are they actually satisfied with the support they're getting? So that's KPI number 2. And it's a sequence. So if you're going to pick 2, pick these 2. But of course, it's possible that they are great at doing their business and they're really happy with your support from just getting the numbers on time every month. They don't need more from you. Just send me the presentation and go away, to whatever you're doing. It's possible, right? So you got to be able to talk about how are you actually part of reaching these business objectives? How are you driving the value creation? Value interventions. Have you made a direct impact? And we can tell stories about this. I'm sure Zeeshan probably has a story as well to share on this. But if all you do is sit in the back of the room in the meeting, acting like a secretary and sending out an email afterwards and seeing the next month, that is not business partnering. You got to be up there in front of the screen or facilitating or, driving some of these decisions or maybe even leading initiatives. We'll get back to that also. So you have to be able to talk about how are you directly impacting things in your company. And, quick question for the audience here. Do you remember the last time that you impacted a decision? And then maybe I'm gonna flip it to you, Zeeshan. I hope you have impacted lots of decisions, but can you talk about 1 or 2 times where you have made an impact in either current company or previous companies that you've worked in?
Thanks, Anders. Anders, as a CFO, I think one of the imperatives for us is to improve the margins of the business, so the business is more scalable, and you can generate more resources for reinvestment in the business, right? So I can share that example. So I mean, in terms of improvement in the margins, what I did in my roles was first bring visibility of the key drivers of the business, right? There is a revenue. I mean, if you look at your if your typical P&L or financials, I mean, you have the revenues, you have the costs, and then you have the operating expenses, right? So I think the first thing is to do your horizontal or vertical analysis and get your basic visibility of where you stand and what the trends have been, right? And that talks to Anders. It talks to the insights part, and data democratization part, where you bring the data and you bring it out to in front of your stakeholders. Once you've established the baseline, then as a business partner, Anders, you need to engage with the team. As a trusted business partner, you need to engage and you need to show the stakeholders what the trends are and what the vision could be, right? I mean, and the great thing is, Anders, as finance, I mean, you have arsenal on your back, which is the data, and numbers never lie, and data never lies, right? So you have a very convincing business case that this is where we are, and this is where we want to go, and this is what we could do differently. And that's where the foresights part come in, Anders, where you seek the current trends and you sit with the business, you sit with the stakeholders, you sit with commercial and supply chain people, and you look at their costs and you say, how could we run the business differently, which could give us better margins. So that's the business partnering. It is turning your insights into foresights, and it is also convincing and impacting your audience, right? Which is all the great hallmarks of a good finance leader. So I think, Anders, the formula is there, right? And I've had very good results practicing this, bringing visibility to all the stakeholders, because very simply, Anders, and the audience, that what you cannot measure, you can never improve. So, Anders, sometimes, I mean, the audience and people might think that, what, it's finance business partnering is a very theoretical concept. It's a very soft concept. It's not. I mean, there is a soft side to it, but it is as hard as it gets, Anders. Which means you talks about the data, you talk about the analytics, you talk about the trends, you bring your business case forward, and so it's about defining your problem, understanding the current baseline, and defining where you want to be, and then making sure that you work with your business partners to reach there. So this is just under some of the key experience from my practical life, if I can share.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing those, Sishan. I think we'll dig a lot more into that on in the coming sections as well. So really appreciate you sharing that. We also have a gift here saying that it's a mindset, and yes, it definitely is a mindset first and foremost. And I think we have a question also coming in from Haji, I believe. I can't see the full name here, but I'm sure we can bring it up on screen. He says AI is rapidly advancing and may potentially replace human jobs in the future. Additionally, the population is growing at a faster rate. How do we reconcile this? Maybe a little bit off topic here, but definitely part of the reason or case of business partnering. Do you want to have a first crack at this, Shishan?
Sure, Anders. So, Anders, I know that AI has been big in technology, in the media, and I mean, it's a technology which is happening, Anders. So, rather than debating against it, I think we are adopting it, and I'm adopting it. I mean, as a finance leader, as a finance professional, I'm adopting AI. It is helping me make my communication, make my analytics faster, which is fine. Having said that, I think again we are still a year, 2 year, 3 years away for a full technology and skill set adoption, Anders, right? So I think we need to keep abreast with the latest technology, but still I do see next 3 to 5 years we will see more evolution happening. But for now, I do not see a very dramatic impact, especially in the finance business partnering area, because like I said, it's a combination of hard and soft skills, right? So you may use your AIs for the data analytics, for some analysis, some trends. But as a finance business partner, you need to communicate, you need to impact and influence, and you need to convince your audience that what you're saying and the direction that you're giving to the company, to your function, to the organization makes sense, both from the vision point of view and from the data point of view. So I think it's happening, but still, I think it will be some time before there's a full adoption, and we have long way to go before it totally replaces human intervention.
Yeah, and I think, if we should learn anything from history, it is that the population of Earth, if we can take that perspective, has always been growing and technology has always been advancing. Yet today, more people are employed across the world than ever before. So I doubt that there's going to be a scenario in any near or midterm future where that is not going to continue. And I think, secondly, if we take it down into finance, since we still spend 2/3 of our time on the controlling part, shouldn't we just leverage AI to do some of that work so we actually freed of those shackles, if you will, and do more of the partnering things? I think so. But of course, it may require some upskilling. And I also saw a statistic that said AI is going to create more jobs than it's going to take away. But of course, it's different jobs. So I think the message here to Haji is upskill yourself to remain relevant in this future. But thanks a lot for that question. Really appreciate it. And if there's more questions from the audience, just feel free to keep them coming. We'll try to address them as best as possible. But I'll progress things a little bit here, and then we'll check back in with Zeeshan a little bit later. So you talked a little bit about it already, Zeeshan, but let's talk about the inside part. Are you bringing something new and relevant to the table? You should ask yourself that question every single day, right? What is insights? Insights is providing decision makers with new perspectives that enable them to make better decisions. That's as simple as that. And it's a very broad definition for sure. But guess what? Insights can come from all over the place. It can come from data, financial data, non-financial data, from conversations with people, you name it, everywhere. I see myself almost more like a storyteller today than a finance professional, but I get insights from people every single day. And then maybe the next day, I use that insight to tell a new story or to share it with another person that then helps him or her progress their thinking, right? So it's all about those new perspectives. 3 areas perhaps to add insights. It could be in running the business, so becoming more efficient, right, in the things that we're already doing. Or it could be changing the business, so doing the right things, becoming more effective, running things even better, process improvement, business optimization. And then the last bit, growing the business. And that's perhaps where I see the fewest finance people actually taking charge. We actually had an event in Copenhagen this past Monday where we teamed up with some pricing, commercial excellence experts, talking about how finance can get involved in, first and foremost, growing the business, but also in pricing. There's a ton of potential and opportunity there, and really something that I feel more finance professionals should get involved in. But what are some perhaps triggers to generate insight? Well, we can look at it in this nice 2x2 matrix. Consultants like these kind of matrices. So since I'm a consultant now, I have to kind of use this, right? But there's kind of a people dimension to it and a data dimension to it. And so most of us up until now has probably taken the reactive approach, where we either do performance management, asking questions like, why are we below budget? We see it every month. What's happening there? Can we do things differently? Or if we're lucky, perhaps we get some requests from the business. Could you help me understand this recent development that your report showed? So we're kind of waiting for things to happen, or we come after the fact. And by all means, that can drive a lot of value, right? But it's also only a limited scope. Instead, we could actually, and you talk a little bit about it, Zeeshan, try to look forward, try to mine the data. Can we get some foresight into what potentially could happen in the future? Or can we actually see some patterns and trends in our historical data that we didn't know about? So we mine the data. Or we could actually go out and ask proactive questions to business leaders and say, okay, how might we increase sales in the next period? or how could we reduce cost, or how could we increase the number of customers, and then take a more problem-solving driven approach to generating insights. So different approaches here, but hopefully also something that would help you develop some perspectives on how to do this. And just a question again here from for the audience: are you bringing insights to the table? Maybe difficult to answer, but reflect on it. The last meeting you had, did you actually provide some new perspectives? If you didn't, maybe use some of these insights here on trying to create some more insight. But Zeeshan, how are you bringing insights to the table as a CFO? I think everyone's dying to know that.
Thanks, Anders. So, Anders, like I said, I think the first step is data democratization, right? I mean, the data should not only sit with the control and reporting and finance. I mean, each functions who are generating the activity need to know what is the data produced by them and what are the trends looking like, right? And second thing, which is very important, is something which I do all the time as a finance business partner, Anders, is establishing a baseline, right? Like I said, what you can't measure, you can never improve. So you need to have some sort of baselines, doing your horizontal, vertical analysis. And I also do a lot of Pareto analysis, right, which helps me prioritize. For example, the 80-20 rule. What is that 20% value which is generating 80% revenue or cost? So these kind of prioritizations, these kind of analysis help you put a perspective on the baseline, what you're doing. And then you can use that for creating foresights, right? I'll just give you one very interesting example just for the audience, Anders. So one of the business that we have is a last mile delivery, right? Like Amazon, for example. So we deliver to the end customer. um, we close the month. I look at the revenue of that division, and I sat with my director and I told him that, our price volume mix is lower than what the January numbers were, and we could have done better. And I tried to understand. So he told me, yes, Zishan, I had resource limitation. I know that we focused more on the low value items, more on the volumes. So two things came, right? One was A, that we did not focus more on the high value items. B, that we were not focusing on high volumes. And so this two three things, and we were short of resources, right? So the business will tell you, Anders, right? As a finance business partner, if you just listen to the functions, they will tell you what needs to happen. So I worked on these three things. I said, okay, Ahmed, you can get X amount of resources, but give me Y revenue. And second, I told my last mile director, please don't sell these items which are low value, focus more on high value items. And as you would not believe, I mean, the initial forecast, what he had given, he beat his own forecast, and we were 10-20% higher than even what we had set out to be. And I was just having a chat with my CEO after the closing, and he said, Zishan, we did it. Just that meeting happened, and Zishan, we did it. And he told me, Zishan, please do that meeting tomorrow.
What a great story, Shishan. And I think that is what it is, right? And of course, there's an art to how you ask the questions and the way you carry yourself when you do it, right? And we'll get into that in just a second, because you could have just marched into the office and say, hey, we completely missed the budget here. That's really not good enough. You got to do better next month. I'll see you there. So I better expect you have done it, right? Which is not the approach you took, right? You actually took a more collaborative approach and say, okay, let's try to understand the root causes here, and let's try to see what we can do to get you what you need to deliver. And you did that together, and the results speak for themselves, right? So I really love that story, Shishan, and keep the stories flowing. And we have more questions for you also coming up. Just recognizing here Ibira from Nigeria joining in, and we also just have Rajat from India also. Thanks a lot, all of you, for joining in. We really appreciate that. And I think, even though we do talk about the Middle East here, speaking about India, Nigeria, I think there are similar areas in the sense that, up and coming companies wanting to build also significant finance organizations and wanting to do business partnering as well. So I think all these insights are definitely for you as well. So thanks a lot for joining. We'll continue a little bit here, and then we'll check back in with Zeeshan. So insight is great, but if you have no influence, forget about it, right? You need to have buy-in and acceptance for the insights that you bring to the table. And that's kind of the last part of the formula here, right? Build trusted relations to get buy-in. Trust here, of course, being the key word, but of course there's more to it than just trust. So, none of these elements, insider's influence, can be small, because then you have no impact. What are some behaviors that can help you to influence better? The first, and we can always debate what's most important here, but I think for me, this is critical in terms of behaviors. Be customer centric. Make it about your stakeholders, just like Zeeshan just explained. So how can I help you actually, close the gaps that you now have to the forecast, right? Make it about them, not about you. You may have priorities and things you need to reach for sure, but help them first. If you do that, they will also help you reach your goals. So understand, what are their priorities? What are they doing right now to reach those? And what can you do to help them? It's as simple as that. If you understand their top 3 priorities and you put focused efforts after reaching them, you will be helping them. So do a quarterly rhythm where you discuss with them how it's going, how they're progressing, and you'll be creating value. It's that simple, because you're all smart people. You know how to do analysis and come up with potential solutions. You know that, but you just got to be working on the right issues. So customer centricity is key here. Now, again, I said it's hard to prioritize here, but everything we do as human beings, really, but especially also in business, often comes down to a moment of communication, especially in finance. So communicating with impact is so critical. And I see a lot of management reporting now. I haven't seen Zeeshan, so I'm not gonna poach too much into that one. But 95% of the management reports that we see, they stand to see some improvement. They're not all equally bad, but they're definitely not communicating with impact. And oftentimes they're not communicating in a language that business leaders understand, right? So we can have the greatest insights in the world, but if they don't understand our communication, it doesn't really matter. They're not listening, they're zooming out, and we're not having the impact, right? So communicating financials to non-financial people, critical skill to develop. I mean, customer centricity is not even a skill. It's just go do it. Communication is a skill to develop. And then finally, you make a decision, the best possible decision. Take the lead, right? Okay, maybe you're not the one, practically speaking, executing things, but take the lead to drive things forward. Also, if you identify things that are not working optimally, don't expect other people to fix it. Bring it up and put it in front of people to actually start working with it. That's going to be critical as well. Otherwise, nothing is likely going to happen. So these 3 behaviors will help you to influence better. And then strive to create win-win solutions. You do that by developing trust, key part, communicating in a language they understand. Ideally, start with the answer, not with the details, and be a facilitator of decisions. Because we want to have win-win outcomes. And we do that when we have courage to lean out, even if it's tough messages we need to share, and that when we are showing consideration for others, right? So we can be tough, but in a nice way. And I think that was exactly what you shared just before, Zeeshan, when you told your story, right? You were tough because it was a tough message to deliver. You were behind, but you were nice about it in the sense that, hey, we need to develop this together. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. So just a question here for the audience as well. How are you influencing decisions? What are your top tips to influence a decision? Put it in comments. Let us know. We're definitely curious to hear as well. And then I could, of course, flip it to you, Zeeshan. What are your top tips to influence decision makers?
Thanks, Anders. So I think, Anders, in my experience, trust building is very important, right? So I've seen that a lot of times functions feel finance as policing or as a policeman, right? That, oh, they are there to say, oh, this is wrong. No, no, why did you do this? Why? So the functions, rather than coming out with their issues and problems, they go back in their shells. So they don't open up to you. If the functions don't open up to you, as a finance business partner, you will not be able to identify opportunities for revenue and cost that you need to optimize, right? So I think trust building, and what I've done is, Anders, I do spend time with my key stakeholders on and off. So it's not okay you only go to them when you have some ask from them. Please don't do that. And another thing, if your relationships are strong, this function comes very easy. Why? Because the functions will be willing to support you with any insights or data that you want, which is important for you to present your business case. But if they don't trust you, they will go into their shell and they will not sympathize or empathize with you. So this is one. And the second thing, I think, Anders, something we discuss is what's in it for them. As long as you're showing them that this discussion, this analysis will give them an opportunity to highlight, to improve their own performance and that of their function, they will see you as an enabler and not a policeman. And when the function starts seeing you as an enabler, then, Anders, you will sit 60-80% of time not in finance but in their functions. And Anders, we can also share one great practice that we learned from Maersk, right? All the finance business partners never sat in finance. They were sitting with operations, they were sitting with commercial, they were sitting with supply chain. They never sat in finance.
No, they did not. And I mean, even a small anecdote there is that in one of my finance business partner roles, when I just got the role, I was sitting two steps outside the VP's office, the VP of product there. And that man, every time he came out, even I was new, he may still kind of chat a little with me or dump a thought on me or something like that. Then we reorganized the floor at the office, and I was 10 steps away. And he never then came to me unless he actually had a purpose with going to talk to me. Now was someone else sitting two steps out his door. So imagine the difference between 2 and 10 steps. Think about a different floor or a different office building or a different country. Sure, you can do something virtually, but you said about this on and off, right? Virtually, it's on. The off connects you only get when you have close proximity to your stakeholders. So I mean, that's just so key there. So I always recommend sit 3 to 4 days at least with your business stakeholders. And then maybe you can have one day where the finance team sit together to also exchange experiences. That can definitely also have some value as well. And then another tip I wanted to share in terms of developing trust. Ensure that your stakeholders know why are you there. And why are you there? You're there to help them be successful. You're here to help them meet, or in the story you told, Zeeshan, beat the target. As long as they know that, they know that everything you do is coming with the right intentions, even though the message might be tough. And that's a great start to a relationship if you have a new stakeholder relationship going on. So just wanted to add some of those things as well. And then again, thanks for sharing some of your experiences here, Zeeshan. Just want to recognize Sladjana calling in from Calgary in Canada. And then we have Augustine sharing some of his top tips to influence. One is focus on them, not you. Yes, absolutely. People are naturally more interested in things that benefit them. And I think maybe also going on some of the things that you said, Zeeshan, is, people love to talk about what they do, right? So just ask them how their business is going. And they love to talk about that. But if you come and talk about, hey, I've seen this in the numbers, what's going on, maybe that's kind of the wrong starting point. So get them talking. And as you said, listen, and you'll learn so much. right? So really many great tips here. And Augustine, if you have more, just please keep them coming. We'll happily feature them up here on the show. Okay, so we talked about the case of business partnering. We talked about the formula insiders times influence equal to impact, and broke down each of the parts and how to increase them. How do you then get started? How do you take that first step? Are you ready to do what it takes? Now, why haven't we done it already is perhaps a good question to start with. It's not because it's complex to understand. I put the simplest formula up here for you: insights times influence equal to impact. That's what it is. Okay, I even put a one liner to describe insights, influence, and impact. That is what it is. It's that simple. However, it's difficult to do in real life. That's why it took me 10 years to go through this people transformation. And of course, that means people need help. They need help from the leader. They need to see peers doing it. Maybe they need training. Maybe the organization needs to be differently structured, and so on and so forth. They need help. And it starts with the leader recognizing that it is difficult to do and giving them the support that they need. And then you can start to talk about taking the first steps. The first step is to start changing some of your habits. You know, take one thing. Take one thing away from this LinkedIn Live here today and try that out. Try it out for some weeks or months, and you'll start to develop a habit of doing things differently. The habit becomes a new behavior, and you can start developing new habits so you keep filling the pipeline. After a while, you change so many behaviors that your mindset is changing. I gave an example earlier today at a talk I gave, saying, I, in some of my previous roles, had the opportunity to go to the meetings with the business leaders at a morning meeting every morning. But oftentimes, I chose not to go. Why? It was just more comfortable not going. Maybe I didn't know my staff purpose there. Maybe I thought they wouldn't like me there. I don't know. All sort of excuses I gave myself. But at the end of my personal transformation, I always went to the meetings. I always learned something new, and I was always able to provide value. Right? So enough new behaviors led to my mindset changing. And if you have enough people in your organization changing that mindset, your culture will change too. And this doesn't happen overnight. Let's recognize that for sure. But over a few years, yes, maybe years it takes, this could change. But it starts with that habit, and you can change a habit in 3 months or less, and then you have to sustain it. Question for the audience here, before throwing it back to Zeeshan: what could be your first step? Really curious to hear that. What could be your first step to start doing things differently? Zeeshan, where are you and your teams on this journey? Have you changed some habits and behaviors, or how does this change and look for you and your team?
Thanks, Anders. So it's an effort at different levels, Anders, which has to take place, right? So on the hard side of it, you need to review your existing setup in terms of which data sets are available, which systems are available, what are the reporting routines, what are the analysis and the reports that your function, that finance function, or your FP&A function or your business planning function is producing, right? That will set the baseline. And then using that, then, Anders, it's about also meeting your key stakeholders, starting from the senior management to the middle management, to understand what their needs are. Uh, a very interesting example comes to my mind, Anders. Once I was the head of commercial finance with Coca Cola, right? And my CFO called me to the room and he said, Zishan, stop sending all reports from tomorrow. I was staring at his face that maybe I think he's not in his right mind. I am producing so many great reports. Why would he ask me to do that? He said, that's it. I tried discussing. He said, Zishan, will discuss in 2 days. I said, okay. I went back. I stopped my team from sending any report. Anders, after 3 days, we out of the 15-20 reports that we were producing, we only got reminders for 3 to 5 reports, and we did not get any reminders for the remaining reports. So, which told me, Anders, that sometimes a lot of the data producing activity is for the hell of it, which is not contributing in any way to your receiving functions, right? And then my CFO called me back, said, Zishan, what's the update? I told him, and he told me, Zishan, see, me and my CEO, we were discussing what are the key areas which we are not focusing on, and how we can rechannelize resources from the existing reports to these new areas where the senior management wants more clarity or more direction. So just one practical example which I shared with you. So another on the softer side, Anders, I think it also requires review of the team capabilities, right? uh, Sorry to bust the bubble, and I know that it may come as a hard point, but finance business partnering, Anders, is not a science and a method which comes automatically. It's a discipline, it's a mindset, and it is about going outside your comfort zone. Anders, going out sitting with the senior leaders when you have the possibility of getting exposed is not a very comfortable thought. Sitting in senior meetings when the CAO expects you to do mental maths like this as a finance business partner is not a comfortable thought, right? So I think it's about having the right skill set and the right team. And if they don't have, we need to build those capabilities. If we don't have, we need to get those capabilities from outside. And lastly, I think, Anders, it's also about leading by example and creating that culture, right? If the team will see their managers, their CFOs, their finance leaders sitting most of the time with the CEO, with the commercial directors, the team will do the same. If the CFO, finance leaders will sit in their room all the time and will be afraid to go and talk to the business and the functions, team will do the same. So I think as a leader, if you're trying to create that culture, you need to set and lead by example. And I think we had a great comment here. I was reading through the comments. You have to inspire your team to come out of their comfort zone, right? You have to show them a different vision of themselves, that for example, if they leave their comfort zone, they can become a totally different personality, which is front footed, which is out in the future, and which is able to collaborate and impact and influence key decisions in the organizations. And last, Anders, a very litmus test that I do in some of my workshops that I do, I ask a very simple question to everyone. How much dollar terms did you create an impact because of your experience in last 2 3 years? And trust me, Anders, very few people come with a dollar impact to me. So
Mhm.
finance business partnering, Anders, as we both know, has a dollar impact to it. It's not just talking, it's not presentation, it's hard value that you create for your organization.
No, absolutely, Shan, and that's why I always practice my dollar stories, right? So if you came to me, I could give you probably five without thinking too much about it, because I practice my dollar stories. I practice my value intervention stories, what we're talking about on the impact part. And you're so right about the comfort zone, and that's, it's really been driving me throughout those 10 years I went through the people transformation. So if you were to ask our managing partner at Business Partner Institute today about, my now comfort zone slash the opposite, which is kind of like the growth mindset, right? He would say, it's kind of crazy the kind of growth mindset that you have adopted, and others are saying that as well. And it didn't come naturally, right? It's a personal choice, a development path, and that path was filled with lots of challenges and heartache and tough times. But coming out on the other side, man, whenever I tell one of those dollar stories, I get goosebumps, because it's just so amazing to create that kind of impact. And I want everyone in the audience to feel that impact too. And hopefully you can learn a lot from Sishan's experiences that he shared here today. And we're coming towards the Q&A part of the session. And I can see we already have some questions there, but I'll just briefly touch upon Augustine's last tips to influence here. He says number 2 is logic and emotion, the persuasion power couple. A strong case needs both. 100% right. Speak to the heart, speak to the mind, and you can get more done. So great tip there. And his last tip is be clear and anticipate resistance. Clearly state your desired outcome and why it's beneficial. People are more likely to agree to something they understand. Absolutely. But also show that you're listening to them, right? Even though you have the right solution, you need to listen because maybe their input could make the solution even better. So just wanted to add that as well. And I can see that Haji has asked some more questions here. So let's try to bring some of those up. He asked, how do we use our influence to inspire and motivate the team? He also asked, what strategies should we use to ensure our influence is both positive and effective in our communication? And I'm just going to be shameless here and turning that over to you, Zeeshan. Any thoughts on this?
Thanks, Anders. A very interesting question, a very practical indeed, right? Uh, so I think inspiration needs to needs to come from few examples where people can relate to the effort and the value that came, right? So I'll just share an example here, right? So uh, Anders, in my current role, when I joined, I could identify one or two very strong business partners in my team, right? I made them to create some excellent business cases and decisions. And when they were adopted and they got encouragement and they got certificates and they got some appreciation from the senior management, that became as a role model, for others to follow. And then I will tell you something very interesting, that in my experience, sometimes the control function gets very jealous of the FP&A function, because the FP&A function gets more time with the senior management, right? So then, but once you show them these role models of how you transition and what benefit can bring to you in terms of your growth, career growth, your personality growth, I think people will be able to adopt. So that's answer to the first question. The second thing is strategies to ensure influence is both positive and effective in communication. So I think something which I'm still learning as an individual. Uh, God gave us two ears and one tongue, and not vice versa, right? So I still believe if you listen more, you will have a more positive influence, because you will understand your functions, your partners more, and they will also appreciate that you are listening to their issues and challenges. So you do your work by leading them, not by imposing on them. So I think as long as you're doing that and you are also empathetic with your other functions like supply chain, commercial, I think it can create that positive influence, Anders, that you were referring earlier in the webinar. So I
Yeah,
hope, Anders, I answered the questions.
no, you definitely did, Sichan, and I guess the concept I was thinking about was this of active listening, right? So you listen not with the intent to respond, but with the intent to listen. I mean, truly listen what they're saying, and of course that may mean that you don't have an instant response to them when they are done talking, but you shouldn't have. You should probably ask more questions to even better understand what are their issues. Right. So it's a great questions there. I think we have probably time for the last question from Hati as well. Here it says, "How do we balance being influential while maintaining authenticity and trust?" Zishan.
Great. So I think it's about uh, knowing what you know and what you don't know, and being honest about it, right? So I'll tell you a very practical example and share that with the audience, right? Sometimes I have other functions, I sit with them or they sit with me. I say, you know what, guys, I don't know how to proceed forward. I need your help. And I've seen, Anders, when you are vulnerable, right? People come to your help. You are being authentic. Why? Because you are saying what you know and you are saying what you don't know. You are being authentic, right? However, when the other functions engage with you, the way that you ask the intriguing questions and the way that you explore a subject, that will gain the trust, and they will know that you're trying to explore a subject and offer your insights and and your suggestions during the conversation. So that will automatically influence. A lot of times, Anders, I'll share some practical examples and you'll know that as well. A lot of time people say that I will go to Mr. or Miss X, and I will not go to Mr. Y or Miss Z. Some people are more comfortable going for some people while not for others. What's the difference? Both are the same finance business partner, both are the same finance leaders, but that's the comfort level, right, that some have developed and the others could not, because of some of the things that we explored earlier in the webinar.
No, absolutely, Shan. I think great questions from Hatya here, and you did very well in really providing some perspectives on those. I think, wow, that was an hour, Shan. That just flew by like I don't know what, like a speedy train going from the airport in Dubai to the center, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we need to wrap it up here. If there are more questions coming in also after the live here, of course, Ishan and I will check back in to see what it is, and we'll try to respond in text. But Sishan, big thank you to you for coming here today, sharing your experiences, your perspectives on how to succeed with business partnering in the Middle Eastern context, right? We all have different contexts, and sometimes it requires a bit of a tweak, but it always helps to hear from someone who's done it, who's in it. So we really appreciate you taking the time today. And thanks everyone for listening in. Those staying with us throughout the full hour. Thanks to Hati for great questions. Thanks Agustin for sharing your top tips for influencing and all the other interaction we got. We really appreciate that. We'll be back next week with other episodes of the #FinanceMaster show. So a lot more LinkedIn lives and content to come. And I'm sure we'll also see more of Shishan as well. Go give him a follow or connect with him on LinkedIn. He shares great perspectives all the time. He's an amazing leader, amazing CFO, really someone to look up to. So don't hesitate to reach out to him with your questions, dilemmas, career guidance. I'm sure he's there to help you as well.
Thank you, Anders. Thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate that. And I think great interactive audience, Anders, today as well.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was lovely to have that. So thanks everyone, and bye for now. See you next time, and thanks to Jan as well. It's been great being here with you today.
Thank you, Anders. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to #FinanceMaster. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the latest trends in finance and accounting.